Hey guys, welcome back to another SJ Games Live. I am Hunter, and I'm here with
Guy.
He's
Hi,
our
Hunter.
he's our events coordinator here at Steve Jackson Games. If you've seen us at conventions, it's because of this guy. And today we're going to be talking about his Dwarf Cleric deck. This guy here, yeah, he actually made this. This is a neat little standee that we've used in some programming in the past. But we're going to talk about the Dwarf Cleric deck. Do a deck check. We've done a couple of these in the past. You might have seen the Wizard one I did last week. Before that, Jimmy and IT did his Bard deck. Before we get started, though, I wanted to make sure double check that description below. It has a list of Day of Reckoning events that might be near you. A lot of local game stores are participating across the country. There's a huge list of stores there. Find one near you. Give them a call. Let's see what time and date and all that stuff the event is. The event's going to be awesome. It's going to be these really cool full art heroes. We actually showed some of them online. But they're really, the prize kit is awesome. Take a look at it. See if one's near you. But for now, let's take a look at your deck.
Awesome. So we are the Dwarf Cleric, and your big power is your ability to just sustain damage. So in this particular deck, we are actually going to do our best to cause as much damage as possible, thinking we are going to be very resistant to that. And a lot of our powers are actually activated by either preventing incoming damage or by healing. That's the big synergy that we're going to build off of. There's not a lot of monsters that play a big part of this. It's actually kind of low in monsters because we're going to be doing damage in other ways. So it kind of messes with a lot of other people's typical strategies and defenses because we're not throwing a lot of monsters out there. Oftentimes when I play this, I'm just laying out allies, I'm laying out loot, and just kind of laughing at all the things coming in. So one of the major strategies of this deck is we play a lot of the, and this is where it's going to get funky. Foyer. How do we pronounce that? Do we have?
I think it's technically foyer, but I always end up at foyer because whenever I say foyer, people look at me and they're like, "You're a jerk for calling it that."
Yeah, it's the flaming hallway, but that's it. So this is a big one. So this is usually the location that I will want to get into play very early. If I don't have this in that opening group of cards, I will almost always take a mulligan to try to get it out because that is a key part of the strategy. As a backup possibility, you could also use Tax Heaven, but this generates some gold and doesn't do as much damage. That is your preferred one, but you could also use the same strategy off of this. So at each hero's reckoning stage, all heroes take 1 damage. So that basically means in a cycle, everyone's taking 2 damage in every cycle of combat on top of things. Every time you zap, you're going to prevent damage to yourself or an ally. You will see how that plays into it. One of my favorite pieces to have out too as far as loot is the 1 bling. It is cheap to get out there. If you're lucky, you get both of these out in that opening hand. So as you read the card, zap your hero card, which you're going to be doing a lot anyhow. You're going to prevent a damage. So it oftentimes is going to be the damage from this. And more importantly, you will get to go ahead and deal a damage, typically over to your opponent. So this is pretty much unblockable. You can keep on doing this every turn, and this is part of that perpetuating cycle of taking damage, laughing it off, and finding ways to share that damage onto the guy you're trying to knock down.
I like that you use the word share. I don't think they consider
It's for all
sharing.
of us. We get to share it together. Okay. Your other big guys that you want to have out in the loot department is Holier Symbol. Easy to figure out. Zap, you heal 1. It's only a cost of 2 to get it out there with your levels. You will see where this comes into play as my allies start to pop out. But the more of these cheap loot you can get out, the more you're going to sustain damage and transfer it over. The big bad boy, which comes out later, is the Holiest Symbol, not to be confused with the Holier Symbol. And this is a nice one because it gives you options. So not only can you do a zap to heal 2, which again, remember that heal term because that's going to work later. You also have the option to zap it and squish all cards stuck to your hero. So if you're playing against an irritating hero like Jimmy's Bard, he will tend to attach a lot of cards onto your hero nonstop.
Yeah, it gets pretty rough.
Constantly. So the beauty of this is once it's out in play, you can just keep zapping it to try to slough off all those cards that he will be stacking onto you over and over again. There's other loot I play with a little bit. Robe of Retribution. This is one, good for little cheesy monsters, but I'm still deciding if this is worth putting in, because for the cost of getting this robe out to get these pestering monsters out, better I'm feeling those spaces are filled with more 1-blings or more holier symbols. This is an optional one. I have 1 or 2 in just to see how it works out for me, but I'm finding the cost of this probably doesn't compare to the cheaper costs of the more effective loot.
Or even the holiest symbol being 3 at the same time.
Yeah,
it's so good.
That's hard to beat.
It's tough.
But this is a backup plan.
Yeah, it's a good
one
one
in there just for fun. All right, here is your favorite ally. Let's do the easier to read version. So, Dr. Meow Practice, besides being funny and fun to say, you want to stock up your deck with 3 of these no matter what it takes. The reason is, not only is he a meat shield for later game like all allies, Zap. Deal 1 damage to target opponent. This is an interrupt, but the condition to that is you have to use it when you are healed. So every time one of these bad boys is going to heal you, hopefully you have a whole string of Dr. Meow practices ready to zap, and suddenly you're sending 2-3 damage over to your opponent. That is a beautiful card to have. Part of that synergy we're hoping to get early in the game. Your other fun allies are Eric the Jerk. He is not super critical. He's really just a cheap meat shield for the most part, but because I'm not actively sending monsters out, especially early in game, to damage the opponent, his great ability is Zap, deal 1 damage to that opponent under the condition of he zapped an ally or a weapon in their control. So whoever I'm fighting is always going to have some allies and weapons in play. The more Eric the Jerks I can have out there, the more I can just do pretty much unblockable easy damage. So it discourages them from using their offenses against me, and it's causing them free damage without having to mess about with monsters to do that. And you get to see Eric.
Yeah,
who's always nice. He's not that big of a jerk.
Yeah, that card kind of works a little bit like that card Tromboned that we were talking about before with the Bard. It prevents you from zapping your hero, or it makes you take a damage every time you do it. He kind of does something similar in the fact that if they use that hero ability, you won't take a damage immediately, but Eric will probably.
And every ally in play is now something to use against them.
Or in the case of weapons, it's kind of like the Trombone for weapons and allies. Yeah,
it's a sweet one, and that's a neutral card, so anyone can have that. Just don't have it in your deck if you're playing me, because I don't like to have my tactics used against me where I can prevent it. Your other meat and potatoes card is the Healing Salvo. So it's fairly inexpensive, just costs you 2 gold. Let's get one that's a little easier to read. So you're going to heal anywhere from 1 to 6. If you get lucky, you're going to get a 6. And one of the cards I'm considering putting in is the one that lets you impact or re-roll the die.
Even Steven, I think.
Even
Steven's the monster. I think it's just loaded dice in this one.
That's it, the loot. Yeah. Pretty inexpensive, and is a chance to potentially get even more out of that. But just the idea that you could heal 6 for the cost of 2 gold potentially, hard to beat that one. Your other beauty card for late in game is this one, Smite Unseen.
I love that card.
So he's the only guy that has it. It's fantastic. Late in the game, as you're trying to get a sense of what kind of monsters are being sent your way, there will come a point where some terrible dumpster of doom or those orcs, something that's going to deal a lot of damage that might even give you a problem. For the cost of 2 gold, if you can predict it right, whenever that fight starts, you just basically drop this out. Whatever that card is, you don't get it revealed, but for 2 gold, that card goes away, never to be seen again, off into the discard pile.
Monster removal's always good, I think.
It's kind of nice.
It's nice to have.
So he is another one of your meat and potatoes, and you also have a nice set of bleeding options with stuff shaming. So for 2 gold, the bleeding tactic that gets used on me a lot by Jimmy, because he's evil with his bleeding, this gives you a chance to shame their stuff. So if they have loot in play, you spend your 2 gold, you can attach this to the loot, and then that's either going to put them in a position of taking that damage. I think it's on the Reckoning step.
I believe so.
Yeah, on each Reckoning step, or they will voluntarily squish that loot just to get rid of that effect. So you're either going to damage them for the cost of 2 every Reckoning step, or maybe that juiced up piece of loot that's giving you a problem, it'll put them in that position to have to squish it. So that's another great card. And if you're playing thieves who cheat all the time, that's basically a 2 damage card for the cost of 1 gold. So when someone gets caught cheating, drop a gold on them, give them 2 damage. Pretty much another meat and potato cards in there. Now, later in the game is where the few monsters I have in the deck might come into play. Your big baddie that's awesome for you is the Angel of Awesome. So for a cost of 4 gold, if you want to make sure she survives the fight, you might want to not unzap your dwarf card ahead of that, just to make sure she'll survive through to use her ability. But if it all goes well, not only will she remove 2 damage from your card, she will transfer that damage over to your opponent's card. So she's doing damage, she's helping you heal up, and she's also creating damage.
And the cool thing with the Angel, like even if she doesn't survive, you do want her to survive, right? You always want your monsters to live, but even if she doesn't, she's still going to heal you for 2 and move it over there. So like, it's such a good ability for 4 gold. It's a 4 damage swing from you to your opponent.
And she's got this sweet leather jacket, much like the one that Hunter usually wears when we go to events.
Not true.
He looks good in leather.
I'm sure.
It's good. And then this is pretty much in every deck I have. The used card dealer. So as the game progresses and some of your better cards are going to be attacked by the opponent, this is your chance to, for potentially a little cost, if you can sneak them through, get some of those cards back out of your discard and into your hand. So I usually find locations are getting attacked a lot. The low-cost loot is getting attacked a lot. This is just that chance to potentially get them back, or maybe that monster that got whacked earlier in the game you want to try to get back.
Get your Angel back.
Yeah. And then this is one that I just started sneaking a few into the deck. He's basically a low-cost to high-damage monster. The cost is it's going to cost you 1, but you're kind of laughing off damage a lot as a cleric, especially early in game. So for a cost of 3 to get 5 damage out there, he's not a bad swap of resources bouncing around.
And the thing with these guys, you're only running this is somewhere there's 8 monsters, so it's pretty low compared to a lot of the other decks. But you've got stuff like Stuff Shaming, and you've got an entire game's worth of you not attacking with monsters. So they may not prioritize getting that loot into play or keeping the loot in play. Like if you Stuff Shame a big thing, they're like, well, I haven't been attacked, so let me just get rid of that. And then you're like, okay, now I'm going to attack you.
Then we get all funny.
Yeah.
Other things that I've played around with swapping in and out. In the monster world, Rage in a Cage is also a nice one where at the right set of circumstances, so you have to have its 10 damage, I think, on your card.
I've used that one a lot.
And again, you're kind of not... A lot of heroes are in trouble when they have 10 damage on them, like they're starting to get toward end game. A Dwarf Cleric with 10 damage on them isn't necessarily in that bad of a spot, so this card suddenly is only going to cost you 2 with that damage in play to potentially put out 4. He's strong on health. This is one that I'm playing around, possibly swapping in and out for that false prophet, just for that latter part of the game. And then always a good idea to have 1 or 2 bodyguards in there, again, just to help you slough off those cards if you're playing someone that's doing a lot of bleeding effects or attached cards.
Cool.
But that's pretty much how I play out. Any other questions you have for me?
No, let's go up to this camera here. Cool. So, guys, I think that's it. That was a great overview of that deck. We're actually about to do our league championship. I believe it's going to be a little bit later today. Yeah? So we got one more deck to cover. We don't know if she's going to be the league champion. She might be, but Guy, I'm going to try to give her a run for her money.
Is it that purple lady?
I think it might be the purple lady, the thief deck. It's the other one we voted on last week. Guy's Cleric won this week, but we will be covering that really soon. Hopefully next week. We do have PAX East next week, so we're going to be there. Booth TT11. We're going to be running events that weekend as well, so check that out. It'll be Tabletop HQ. We don't actually do the signups at our booth or ahead of time. PAX is a little bit different in that way, so make sure you check out Tabletop HQ to sign up for those events. They're going to be a lot of fun. I believe it's a full constructed tournament.
Yeah, so definitely if you're signing up for the tournament, make sure you have a constructed deck with. We're not providing materials, although you can buy stuff there from one of the retailers.
Yes.
We're also going to do the Munchcathlon too.
Munchcathlon, yeah. If you're just a Munchkin player, those are always classic. They're huge Munchkin tournaments that happen there. And definitely, if you're not in Boston this next weekend, Day of Reckoning events, the link is in the description below or above or to the side. Wherever you're watching this on Facebook, please check those out. Your local game stores want you to come out and play and win some cool promos, and we want you to get some cool stuff. Those oversized heroes are really awesome. The Runaway poker chip tokens are going to be in that. Plus all the OP set 1 stuff. It's a cool kit. Plus you'll get to meet some Munchkin CCG players. The game is very young, and it's time to grow the community. Thank you, Guy. Awesome. So, guys, post in the comments below if you have your own combinations that you're doing. We did that in the previous videos where people post their own deck lists and things like that. We got some really cool suggestions and ideas. And check out our Discord and all our Facebook pages for that. And of course, like our page, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks, bud. Thanks for joining us, Guy.
Thanks for inviting me over.
We'll see you next time.